Greetings, friends, and welcome to the captivating tale of a surgeon's journey through redemption, deceit, and the unexpected twists that life has to offer. Enjoy the story.
Dr. Michael Stevenson, a strikingly handsome 40-year-old surgeon, reclined on his worn but comfortable sofa, nursing a glass of cheap red wine after a long shift at the county hospital. He relished the quiet solitude of his small apartment. Though his living quarters were modest, he took pride in the simple life he had built for himself in this sleepy little town. It was a far cry from the high-stakes, high-pressure world of the big city hospital where he had once worked. There, he had fallen victim to the dangerous allure of power and privilege, becoming entangled in a scandalous affair with the chief of surgery's daughter. The resulting fallout had cost him his job and nearly his medical license. But here in this peaceful community, Michael had found redemption. His patients were grateful, often paying him with homemade meals and small gifts instead of the cold, hard cash he had once been accustomed to. He didn't mind. The kindness and appreciation meant far more to him than money ever could. As he sipped his wine, Michael allowed himself a rare moment of contentment. For the first time in years, he felt truly at peace. The shrill ring of the phone jolted Michael from his reverie. Sighing, he set down his glass and hurried to answer, already dreading the prospect of another late-night emergency. "Dr. Stevenson," he answered, his voice tinged with weary resignation. "Doctor, we have a critical situation at the hospital," the frantic voice on the other end replied. "There's been a terrible car accident. The victim is billionaire Richard Andrews. He's in bad shape, and we need you here immediately." Michael's eyes widened in alarm. Richard Andrews was one of the wealthiest and most influential men in the region. If he was in such dire straits, it must be serious indeed. "I'm on my way," Michael said, already grabbing his coat and car keys. As he raced through the deserted streets, Michael's mind raced. Richard Andrews was known for his philanthropic work and generous spirit, but he was also notoriously demanding and impatient. Michael knew that if he failed to save the tycoon's life, his own career could be ruined. Steeling himself, Michael burst through the hospital doors, ready to face the challenge head-on. The operating room was a flurry of activity as Michael and his team worked tirelessly to stabilize Richard Andrews. The billionaire had sustained massive internal injuries, and the odds of survival were slim. Michael's colleague, Dr. Elaine Sinclair, eyed him skeptically. "Are you sure you can handle this, Michael? This is a high-stakes case and we can't afford any mistakes." Michael met her gaze with unwavering determination. "I've got this, Elaine. Just give me your full support and we'll pull him through." For the next 4 grueling hours, the surgical team fought a desperate battle against time and the ravages of Richard's injuries. Michael's hands moved with precision and focus, his years of experience guiding every incision and suture. Finally, as the clock struck 3:00 a.m., Michael stepped back, exhaustion etched on his features but triumph in his eyes. "He's stable. We did it," he announced. The room erupted in relieved cheers and Michael allowed himself a rare smile. He had defied the odds and saved the life of one of the most powerful men in the region. This could be the turning point he needed to rebuild his tarnished reputation. True to his reputation, Richard Andrews spared no expense in ensuring his recovery. Within days, the drab hospital room had been transformed into a veritable palace, complete with the finest linens, gourmet meals, and a team of specially flown-in medical staff. Michael marveled at the billionaire's lavish accommodations, a far cry from the modest surroundings he was accustomed to. Yet, despite the opulence, Richard seemed to take a genuine interest in the surgeon who had saved his life. "Dr. Stevenson, I can't thank you enough for what you've done," Richard said, his voice filled with genuine gratitude. "If it weren't for your skill and quick thinking, I wouldn't be here today." Michael felt a twinge of discomfort at the effusive praise, unused to such overt displays of appreciation. "I was simply doing my job, Mr. Andrews. Any surgeon worth their salt would have done the same." Richard waved a dismissive hand. "Nonsense. You took a huge risk operating on me, and you succeeded where others would have failed. That kind of talent and dedication deserves recognition." The billionaire's eyes gleamed with a hint of mischief. "In fact, I'd like you to oversee my recovery. I trust you implicitly, and I think we could learn a lot from each other." Michael hesitated, unsure how to respond. Working so closely with a man of such immense wealth and influence was uncharted territory for him, but the sincere gratitude in Richard's voice was hard to ignore. I'm honored, Mr. Andrews. I'll do everything in my power to ensure your full recovery." Richard smiled, already reaching for his phone. "Excellent. Now let's discuss how we can make your stay here a bit more comfortable, shall we?" 6 months had passed since that fateful night when Michael had saved Richard Andrews' life. In that time, the two men had forged an unexpected friendship, with the billionaire often seeking Michael's counsel on matters both personal and professional. So it came as no surprise when Richard burst into Michael's office one afternoon, a wide grin plastered across his face. "Michael, my friend, I have the most wonderful news," he exclaimed, practically bouncing with excitement. Michael looked up from his paperwork, a bemused smile tugging at his lips. "Don't tell me you finally found the time to take that long-overdue vacation?" Richard laughed, shaking his head. "Even better, I'm getting married." Michael's eyebrows shot up in surprise. "Married? That's wonderful, Richard. Who's the lucky lady?" "Her name is Katie, and she's the most amazing woman I've ever met," Richard gushed, his eyes shining with adoration. "We met at a charity event a few months ago, and it was love at first sight. She's even pregnant with our first child." Michael felt a pang of unease at the billionaire's enthusiasm. Something about this seemed too good to be true, but he didn't want to dampen Richard's obvious joy. "That's fantastic news, Richard. I'm truly happy for you both." Michael paused, then added, "I assume you'd like me to be there to witness the occasion?" "Absolutely," Richard exclaimed. "In fact, I was hoping you'd be kind enough to give me your honest opinion on Katie. I value your judgment and want to make sure she's the right woman for me." Michael nodded, his mind already whirring with questions and concerns. "Of course, Richard. I'd be honored to attend your wedding." As Richard bustled out of the office, Michael leaned back in his chair, a nagging sense of foreboding settling in the pit of his stomach. Something about this whole situation didn't feel right, and he couldn't shake the feeling that he was about to get caught up in a web of deceit. The grand ballroom of the Andrews estate was a dazzling display of opulence, with crystal chandeliers, gilded accents, and a sea of elegantly dressed guests. Michael stood off to the side, sipping a glass of champagne and observing the proceedings with a growing sense of unease. As Richard and his radiant bride Katie exchanged vows, Michael couldn't help but scrutinize the young woman's features. There was something familiar about her, though he couldn't quite place it. Then, as the couple turned to face the applauding crowd, Michael's blood ran cold. He recognized that face. It was Sonia, a notorious con artist he had operated on years ago in the city prison. She had been sentenced for a series of high-profile scams, including swindling several wealthy individuals out of millions. Michael's heart raced as he watched the woman he knew as Katie cling to Richard's arm, her radiant smile masking a sinister intent. She was up to her old tricks, and this time the target was the unsuspecting billionaire. Unable to contain his shock, Michael surged forward, pushing his way through the crowd until he stood before the bewildered couple. "Richard, stop this wedding immediately," he shouted, drawing startled gasps from the guests. "That woman is not who she seems. Her name is Sonia, and she's a dangerous con artist." Richard's face crumpled in confusion and disbelief. "What are you talking about, Michael? This is my fiancée, Katie. I don't understand." Katie's eyes narrowed, and for a fleeting moment, Michael saw a flash of panic cross her features, but she quickly recovered, placing a delicate hand on Richard's arm. "Darling, I think your friend has had one too many champagnes. I'm your Katie, the woman you love. Don't listen to him." But Michael refused to be swayed. "Richard, look at her closely. This woman is faking a pregnancy to trick you into marriage. She's a con artist, and she's after your money." Richard turned to Katie, his eyes filled with hurt and betrayal. "Is this true?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. Quickly, Michael reached out and took Katie's hand, pulling back the collar of her dress. The woman shrieked, and Richard looked on indignantly. "What do you think you're doing?" he shouted. Michael replied, "I'm showing you who she really is. The police have her fingerprints on record. She's Sonia, a con artist. That's why she's wearing gloves and makeup." Michael could see her trembling. She tried to run away, but he held her back. A dark cloud fell over Richard's face. "Guards, get her out of here," he bellowed.